Holy guacamole. That's right, I can't swear for the first minute of this video, but we got March of the Machine previews at Magic Fest Philadelphia in a panel, and then we had to watch it get live tweeted by people, and then eventually we got the whole video going up on the YouTube channel. It's exciting. There's a lot of stuff. The trailer itself is a teaser trailer. It's basically the combined footage of previous trailers. There's nothing new here. It's quite actually low effort. I could have probably put this together myself with my limited editing understanding and repertoire. The interesting point of this trailer that I do want to highlight though before we go and look at cards and key art is that the gingerbread people from the CGI trailer for Throne of Eldraine are featured like not just once as a, you know, we need to put one part of that trailer in. They're featured like 4, 5 times, something like that. There's going to be a gingerbread. There's got to be a gingerbread or gingerbread person in the new set. But we haven't seen it yet. Just some speculation. And to clarify, yes, this is very soon after All Will Be One finished. I say finished, it's still out there. People are still drafting it. People haven't even opened packs of it yet in some circumstances. I'm going to do a video talking about that probably. I won't bog this video down with it. So you know what's happening. Here's a slide that they shared on Twitter. March 16th. So we're talking just under a month from now. We start to get the March of the Machine story. And then we go through. We get an actual cinematic trailer, which is pretty exciting. Previews begin. Card image galleries, so on and so on. And the release, we get the release April 21st. And then install launch parties on the 21st to 23rd as well, with pre-release events in mid-April. So it's very funny that March of the Machines is really happening in April. So we're going to get to some of the stuff that you're really excited to see in a moment, but we've got to go through it all. There's a lot to get through. So just buckle up. Maybe get yourself a can of Fizzy Pop, Sody Pop or something. And if you want to buy some cards, pre-order some singles or sealed product, use the link in the description below to coolstuffinc.com, get 5% off your first order and help support the show. And also don't forget, on the 23rd of February, I am doing a live AMA over on Whatnot. A link in the description below for that, and you get £10 free credit when you sign up, and that also supports the show. So there's that down there as well. So the first bit of art we've got is a Ravnica invasion shot, essentially. We're going to see these portals that are also kind of it's a bit hammy, but they're in the shape of the Phyrexia symbol. They show up on different planes as the world tree, the Phyrexianized world tree. The realm breaker allows Phyrexia to invade different planes. This mountain is very much Ravnica. We know that from the floating spires. It couldn't be more Ravnica if it tried. There's no real debate about it. We had some people notice that the windows on this front spire look like the Phyrexia symbol. That's the thing that floats around in here. It's more of an abstracted motif than actual in-canon the world transforming to look like Phyrexian symbols. It's just a little Easter egg, if you will. Then we got some swamp art. At first glance, I thought it was a mountain because of the red tones, but it's swamp. It's labelled as swamp. All of these are by Sam Burley, I think, or 4 of the ones I'm about to show you. This swamp is Amonkhet. That's right, we're finally returning to Amonkhet, and we're seeing parts of it being sucked into the portals above as the Phyrexians invade Amonkhet. Again, the motif being that this building with a little like floating rock in the middle makes the Phyrexia symbol. Then we have some snow-covered forests with the snow making the Phyrexia symbol on the right-hand side there. This is probably Kaldheim. It's the most prominent snow plane. It'd be weird if it's just the snowy parts of Dominaria, because Dominaria isn't that snow-covered anymore since the Ice Age ended. And then we have the slightly more aloof one, the island, which I believe is Ixalan. The way the islands are set out and laid out, the big jutting rock into the sky, it feels like Ixalan. But this is my favourite one in terms of seeing the portals doing something interesting where they've opened up underwater. The birds in the sky have also made a Phyrexian symbol, but I want to see the Phyrexians invading through the water and fighting the merfolk underwater. I just think it'd be a cool set piece. Okay, on to our first really exciting piece. We've got Omnath completed. Yep, that's right. We got Omnath in 5 colour now. He got his black mana access. Omnath, locus of all, is white, blue, red, green, and in the middle, in this weird, I don't know if I like it or I don't hate it. I don't know if I dislike it or I like it. It doesn't bother me that much, but it's aesthetic idea of having the Phyrexian symbol in the middle of the mana cost. Legendary creature, Phyrexian Elemental. If you would lose unspent mana, that mana becomes black instead, hinting at how Phyrexia was originally black aligned. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, look at the top card of your library. You reveal that card if it has 3 or more coloured mana symbols in its mana cost. If you do, add 3 mana of any combination of its colours and put them into your hand. If you don't, reveal it, put it into your hand. There's so much text in this thing that they can't actually say add 3 mana of any combination to your mana pool, because there's just too much text. There are 3 versions of this, all of them absolutely fucking slap. I love that his tentacles are going up into the portals on the primary version of him, but the right-hand one here, the extended border one, is by far my favourite. It looks so brutal where he's got these pipes and armoured shelling and stuff, and it looks the most Phyrexian. I airbrushed an Omnath before, so I really hope we get a large model of the Phyrexianized version, because it would be sick. The middle one here you'll notice is the original like showcase frame from Zendikar Rising. Basically, if you get a legendary in this set, or the accompanying stuff like the Commander decks, or even the maybe even Aftermath, don't quote me on that, but they are also available in alternate frames that are the frames from their original planes, which means we're seeing, I think we might even see some that have like a frame we've never seen before, because there's going to be probably ones from Alara, right? Anyway, moving on. I really like this. I think it's really cool. It's a really interesting way to give him finally his 5th colour of mana, other than it just being a boring Zendikar Omnath. Is the card powerful? At 5 mana, I guess so. I mean, it's the pre-combat main phase each turn, so you do draw a card even on the turn that you play if it doesn't immediately get killed before going to combat. And the whole holding onto your mana is a cool callback to the original mono green Omnath. 5 different multicoloured Omnaths, eh? I never thought we'd see the day. Okay, let's look at some key art here. We've got these invasion arts. We don't know what they are yet, but let's be honest, we know we can extrapolate that they're the battles. That's not a really wild guess to make, right? We've got the invasion of Lorwyn. Let's begin there. The invasion of Lorwyn, which is the first time we've been back to Lorwyn in a long time, like over a decade, maybe even 15 years at this point. I didn't look up the exact dates, but we're seeing the elves of Lorwyn fighting against Phyrexians, who are accompanied by Flamekin. These are like the red-aligned elementals. They're black-aligned as well, I believe, when we go to Shadowmoor. Interestingly, it is Lorwyn, so they're invading during the day cycle of Lorwyn, which I think is when the elves are the most powerful. Either way, it doesn't look like a defeat. It looks like there's an invasion happening, but I really hope the elves of Lorwyn fight them back, and Lorwyn isn't a casualty in this war, because I have a real soft spot for Lorwyn. And then we've got another deep cut in Chandalar, the place that the original like Microprose video game that I really do some Let's Plays of on the channel. But Chandalar, we finally return as the Phyrexians invade, and we see a huge tentacle of the world tree in the distant background there coming through one of the portals, and we see some sort of priest or paladin of Norn smashing out the tendrils of some plant life on the planet. Chandalar is very similar to Zendikar. I think that's why we haven't gone back, right? It's very mana-rich plane with lush green environments. So making it distinct to Zendikar is difficult. I guess now with Zendikar being this like ruined floating blocks sort of like post-apocalyptic world, although I guess the elementals did grow back, didn't they, during Rising? I don't know. They're very similar, but it's cool to see Chandalar as a deep cut. And we finally return to Tarkir as well, with the invasion of Tarkir, where we see members of the Ujtai brood on the right hand side here, and the Ataka brood on the left here. I don't think it's the actual titular dragons, I think it's just members of the brood, fighting what appears to be a Phyrexianized Colligan. Yeah, they've got Colligan. We haven't seen it yet. It's going to be quite exciting when we do see her. Yeah, Phyrexianized dragons are pretty hype, and when it's one of like the more famous, the more iconic dragons of that plane, with Colligan's Command being probably one of the most iconic cards in that set, that is pretty high. I hope we get to see Phyrexianized Colligan go up against one of the unfractionized iconic cards, perhaps Ataka or Ujutai in some climactic battle. And then we get to my two favourites, Invasion of Mercadia. Holy shit. If we're saying we haven't been to Lorwyn in a hot minute, Mercadia is longer, 5 years longer. So since 1999, holy shit, it's been a while since we've been on Mercadia. I guess we have had references since with Cliffside Market in Plane Chase, and we had a couple of cards in the Horizon sets, like the little merfolk that's over in Dockhand and that sort of stuff. But we haven't been back, we haven't seen the plane. Here we see the Phyrexians invading Mercadia City, the main city on Mercadia, the place where all the happenings are. We see Rishadan airships defending as well, or at least being there as the attack happens. I don't know how good Mercadia's defenses really are. We've got these Elish Norn style blimps that are new, and I think they look fucking awesome. And there's like a Phyrexianized dragon. It looks like Capricious Hellraiser was a card in the last set that looked similar to this, if a little bit less yellow. It looks like it's actually attacking the blimp in front of it. That might be a perspective thing, I don't know. We see a real close-up at the front of it, of a branch of the world tree coming through portals, and that in the foreground as well, foreground and the background as well. And then my favourite part of all this are these two like Phyrexian interceptor sort of fighter ships here that look like just variants of the Weatherlight pattern of ships, something that Urza created and obviously got stolen and completed by the Phyrexians during Dominaria United. I love this. This is one of my favourite battle scenes we've seen, and it just gets me both nostalgic and excited, and it has stakes in a way that I didn't expect to see. I just didn't expect to see Mercadia, of all places, get wrecked in the Invasion. And the other one of a plane that I absolutely adore is the Invasion of Alara, where we see, in a very Warstorm Surge reminiscent, a very, just reminiscent of a lot of cards in that set, to be fair. We see a lot of Phyrexian troops and monsters and robots and monstrosities going up against Leonin, Viashino, the Knights of Alara. We've got Esper Battle Sisters here on horseback as well. This is sick. And I really, again, this is like Lauren, I kind of want to go back to Alara when it's not Phyrexianized. So I do want Lauren and Alara to come out of this as not full-on casualties, but I do know obviously there's going to be stakes. People are going to die. Just maybe not my favourite planes. Let's talk unlikely alliances next. So there's a whole thing where, because the Phyrexians are invading, duos that you wouldn't expect are teaming up to fight back. The first one that we have to talk about is Yargle and Multani. Yargle has doubled his power and doubled his stuff. He's an 18/6 vanilla creature for 6 mana. He's a frog spirit elemental. If you look at the art, Multani has transformed himself into sort of like a mech suit, like armor on Yargle, perhaps to stop him getting infected by the oil. Although he's a spirit, so I don't even know if oil can infect spirits. But the best part of all of this is the flavor text. I've heard much about you from my daughter, Multani rumbled. There was a time when I'd balk at your aid, Phantom, but she has shown me the merit in Urbolg's strange ways. Replied Yargle. This flavor text is so fucking good. It's comic relief at a point during all of this that we do need some of that comic relief, and I think Yargle is a perfect example of this. You got to remember that Multani and Yargle are at odds. Yargle is a spirit amongst the ruins of what used to be the Great Forests of Dominaria after the Silex explosion, right? So the people of Urbolg aren't looked upon fondly by the spirits of the forest. So here we see an unlikely alliance. And just to show off again one of those alternate frames, we're seeing a stained glass variant of this, which is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the art doesn't quite depict Multani becoming like a wooden armored suit for Yargle, but it still looks great. Absolutely stunning. Probably my favourite of the alternate art versions of these cards coming up in the set. Same flavor text as well. And then let's look at the most hype one, right? Well, there's going to be ones that excite other people, but this is the one that gets me. This is Thalia, the Guardian of Thraben, riding the motherfucking Gitrog monster for 4 mana. Holy shit, I never knew I wanted or needed this until I got the art. It was teased an hour before the production. I was like, it's got to be Gitrog, right? What other big Innistrad frog is there? Because these are all coming from the same planes, it turns out. Well, it turned out it was the Gitrog monster. It's a 4/4 human frog horror with First Strike and Death Touch, taking the 2 keywords from each iteration, Thalia being First Strike and Gitrog having Death Touch. You may play an additional land of each of your turns. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So this is part of Gitrog and part of Big Thalia. And then whenever Thalia and the Gitrog monster attack, sacrifice a creature or land, then draw a card, which is a callback to original Gitrog as well, sacrificing parts of your board to draw cards. For 4/4 it's a human. This is incredibly pushed. It's disruptive of your opponent. It's got relevant keywords. It plays additional lands and it can draw you cards. This card is great. Whether I play it as a commander or whether I try playing it in Maverick, Nick Fit, or maybe even humans across different formats, I don't know. But I need to play this card. I love it. Thalia and Gitrog are literally my 2 favourite legends from Innistrad. And when this was first previewed, I did say in a special call with some of my patrons that I was hanging out with on the weekend, I did think there's a weird matchup. Like Thalia teaming up with anyone on the plane would have made sense. Olivia would have made sense of them, putting the differences aside. Her and Odric would have been a really good combo because they are, Odric was our old mentor, even though he's a vampire now. But the whole point is this is unlikely alliances. So we get the most unlikely alliance possible. We get the Hypnotoad that lives in the waters of a lake somewhere on Innistrad, and the devotion-empowered Guardian of Thraben, and they appear to be, if I'm honest, this looks like it could be a cathedral on Innistrad, where they're fighting Phyrexian sleeper agents and Norn's forces, but it could also be from the structures in the background. This could be Ravnica. Seeing spires in the background makes me think this might be Ravnica. We don't know for certain. Well, we do know for certain. We've seen a load of them running towards camera in a very endgame style thing in some of the promo arts, but we don't know for certain where these duos are fighting, if they're fighting on their native planes, fighting elsewhere, or a combination of the two. The next unlikely pairing we get is Galta and Mavrin. We get the leader of the vampire conquistadors of Ixalan and big mummy milker dinosaur, Galta and Mavrin. So this is a dinosaur vampire. It's not literally a dinosaur that is a vampire, it's a dinosaur and a vampire on the same card. It is a 7 mana, 12/12, trampling, and whenever you attack, you can choose one. Either create a tapped and attacking XX green dinosaur, where X is the greatest power among attacking creatures that you, well, not that you control. So actually, the Interior Giant it matters for either way, that doesn't matter. And the second point is create X 1/1 white creature tokens with lifelink where X is the number of other attacking creatures. Basically, it makes 1/1 white vampires or a big fatty dinosaur, depending on what you need. It's an interesting card. It's a cool card, I guess. At 7 mana, it's quite expensive. It's a cool combination. The art for this is great as well. I like this combo from Ixalan. Then we get our Zendikar, unlikely pairing. We get Drana and Nimvala for 4 mana. A 3/4 flying vigilant creature. So already, that's some good stats. Activate abilities your creatures your opponents control can't be activated. So you've got the Nimvala's old, your abilities don't work anymore. And Drana and Nimvala have all activated abilities of all creatures your opponent controls. You may spend mana as though mana of any card to activate. So you gain the Mana Dork abilities and the Stoneforge Mystic abilities and the other things, Scavenging Users or whatever the opponent's got in play. You gain their abilities too. But only activated ones, bear in mind. Only activated. This card is hot. I love it. We'll take a break from the pairings quickly just to show off a couple of the lands. There is the tapped into the battlefield gain lifelands, and they are all takes on the original classic. So instead of having Sarah on the Art of Windsguard Crag, we have an Elish Norn statue. Our Bloodfell Caves are full of blood and the tentacles of the World Tree. The flavor text here tells us as well that Atraxa is on New Capenna, looking to procure the Halo, a cure for Pheresis. Okay, before more duos, let's talk about other key cards in the set. So we know that Moment of Truth depicts, as the flavor text tells us, on the precipice of eternity, Elspeth made a choice. The fight would not end without her. It's a 2-mana look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and one into your graveyard and one at the bottom of your library. It's an anticipate variant that fuels your graveyard a little bit. But we see Elspeth walking into a door. I believe this looks like she might be going into the afterlife or leaving the afterlife again. She's doing something on Theros, perhaps, because the wispy star-spangled black patches looks like the motif of Nyx in Theros. But obviously in the foreground we see feathers. So one of the big things that people are talking about, because she finds out she's native to New Capenna, is that she might just become an angel. Or she might have angel-like blood or something. So this does really clearly suggest that we're going to get an angel walker Elspeth, which is something that some people are excited about. I don't really give a shit whether she's an angel or not. But I don't think this suggests she's going to die. People are saying this is going to be Elspeth's moment of truth, and Elspeth's going to kill herself or sacrifice herself for the greater good. I just don't get that from this card of this flavor text. A little bit more key art for story points here. We see Chandra meeting Nissa post-fractionization, and this card is called a Traumatic Revelation. Now, for those of you that aren't in the know, that Chandra and Nissa have been shipped hard by the online community for Magic for a long time. They've never canonically been girlfriends, but they've been girlfriends for everyone except the official canon, or Gruul friends as people affectionately call them. There is a bit of a meme here that the Traumatic Revelation might just be that Nissa's actually into decidedly masculine men, which they riff on the fact that to maybe appease the Chinese markets, the conservative markets, Wizards of the Coast decided to make Nissa decidedly into decidedly masculine men, their words not mine, in the really terrible War of the Spark novel. However, since then they have kind of course corrected a little bit and give us other cards with Nissa and Chandra just hanging out together. They're always comboed up as best friends or best friends with a wink. But here we see Chandra finally meet up with Nissa post-fractionization, where she now has, a stick for an arm and she's a bit spikier than she used to be. She's not the soft elf lady she once was. And this should be a real big story moment where Chandra either gets very upset or very angry. I'm looking forward to the short story where they cover this. I think they covered like Jason Verasca's little bit in the All Will Be One stories where Jace takes her on a mind date on Ravnica while she's dying. I thought was glorious. I thought it was a really, really good bit of storytelling. So I'm excited to see who gets to and what they do with Chandra and Nissa when this revelation happens. I really hope they don't just dodge the bullet like they did with War of the Spark. I say bullet, just commit to it for fuck's sake, Wizards. And then we see Chandra, Hope's Beacon. Now, she doesn't sound as angry as you might think she would be. Hope's Beacon and all that. 6 mana Chandra, legendary planeswalk style on 5 loyalty. There's some mythics you'd think it'd be more push, but let's be very real. The rare ones in All Will Be One are way better than the mythic ones. She has an emblem at all times, essentially. Attached to her, she says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. This ability triggers only once each turn. So, for the first spell you cast on each turn, you may copy it. Keep in mind, this happens in your opponent's turn as well. Her uptick is add 2 mana of any combination of colours to your mana pool, which is half a mana morphose. Her +1 upticks, that's 2 upticks. Her +1 uptick, exile top 5 cards of your library. Until the end of the next turn, you may play an instant or sorcery card from among those exiled cards. So basically, she can uptick, find you a removal spell. You've already cast your double spell for this turn, let's say. So you uptick, find a removal spell, pass to your opponent, cast a removal spell at instant speed, and double it in their turn. So you can get double spells in yours and theirs. And a -X deals X damage to each 2 targets, including players' faces. So she can come down to 5 bolt someone in the face. She can be a lava axe for 6 mana, but more importantly, she can remove creature threats that are threatening her. It's not the best protection in the world because you have to have minus XR, which makes her less useful in coming turns, but being able to like -2 to shoot 2 things for 2 damage is pretty decent. I don't think this Planeswalker is anywhere near broken, but it seems like a reasonable power level of mythical red Planeswalker. I'm not sure if I like it in Commando or anything like that, but I could see it being the top end of some sort of deck somewhere. And Breach the Multiverse, the story spotlight of I don't know what the art's even depicting. There's a lot of teeth there, so we know it's Elesh Norn adjacent. All worlds will know perfection. 7 mana, black spell, sorcery. Each player mills 10 cards. For each player, choose a creature or planeswalker card in that player's graveyard. Put those cards in the battlefield under your control. So it's the Phyrexian Freesis thing, right? And then each creature you control becomes a Phyrexian addition to its other types. Big 7 mana, mill and reanimate a spell. I will probably play this in more casual power level blue-black EDH decks that are looking to play with other people's toys and upset the table that way. And then we've got Jin-Gitaxias. Straight up, it's just called Jin-Gitaxias. The reason for that being is that it's a flip card that becomes sort of a storyline of either his creation or his next big step. So on the front end, we have a 5 mana legendary Phyrexian Praetor with Ward 2, and then we have whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, draw a card. So this guy is going to be a powerful storm or spell slinger or combo enabler. He's a 5/5, and then for 4 mana, you can exile him, then return him to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control, and you may only activate this as a sorcery and only if you have 7 or more cards in hand. His back end is a saga, a story of the great synthesis. The first pip is draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand. So if you've done it at 7 or more, you're going to draw 7 more cards, and you have no maximum hand size for as long as you control the great synthesis. On pip 2, turn all non-Phyrexian creatures to their owner's hands, and on pip 3, you may cast any number of spells from your hand without paying their mana cost, exile the great synthesis, and return to the battlefield face up. So it really transforms into Jin-Gitaxias, and you get to cast things in your hand for free. This card is nuts powerful as a commander. I can see it being quite obnoxious when your opponent just goes off. You've got like a 3-turn clock, and don't forget you can always get to the 3rd pip quite easily by proliferating this as well. I think we're going to see some pretty nasty combo decks using this as a commander. It's not going to be CEDH level, and it being mono blue also does weaken it a little bit in terms of what combos it has access to, but having an Omniscience in your command zone that's also a creature and a card draw engine and a multi-bounce sort of ability is pretty wild. I'm glad they didn't give it read ahead, because that would have made it insane. There are a lot of other Praetor arts in the set, so we are going to see probably a similar thing with flip Praetors that become the stories of how they became what they are, what the next steps are. The Elesh Norn one's proportions, people have observed, makes it look like it might even be a Planeswalker on one side. So that's interesting to see. Heliod the Radiant Dawn is a 4 mana 4/4 legendary enchantment creature god that is not indestructible, perhaps an indication that he's lost his devotion on Theros and thus lost parts of his godly powers. When Heliod the Radiant Dawn enters the battlefield, turn target enchantment card that isn't a god from your quiver to your hand, so it regrowths an enchantment, a rather underwhelming ability if I'm honest. And then for 4 mana, which is including a Phyrexian blue, that's right, he's got blue in his colour identity now, good old Heliod, the mono white villain from Theros, and also Phyrexian mana. It says transform Heliod the Radiant Dawn, activate only as a sorcery, and his back end, he stops being a 4/4, becomes a 4/6 legendary enchantment creature Phyrexian god. That's right, we now know that Phyrexians can complete the gods of different planes. You may cast spells as if they had flash, which is a pretty decent ability if we're honest, and then spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card your opponents have drawn this turn. So in other people's turns, your spells will cost a minimum of 1 less. This is some quite unique text I don't think we've seen on a card before. I love it. I am actually blown away that we're going to see a Phyrexianized god, and of all of them, the one to pick, I guess, was Heliod, the big bad guy that Elspeth ended up chaining to the underworld last time we saw him, because he betrayed her the time before that, where he stabbed on the back. I actually love Heliod as a character. I love the idea that he's a greedy bastard Zeus analog, and the fact that he's now joined the Phyrexians is cool, although I would hope, one of my fears is that we're going to see with Omnath and Heliod and other things, so many iconic characters and villains become Phyrexian that once the war is over and things aren't timey-wimey reset, we might be just missing a load of iconic characters to come back to later down the line. This might just be that we never see Heliod again after this, because he gets one-shotted by Val Zarek on Niv Mizzet or something during the climactic battle. Then we got a Fairy Mastermind. This is Yuta Takashi's World Championship invite card. A 2 mana 2/1 with flash and fly. It's a fairy rogue that goes in all those annoying flash rogue and fairy decks. And whenever your opponent draws their second card each turn, you draw a card, and 4 mana each player draws a card. So in their turn, after they've drawn a card, in their end step, you can pay 4 mana if you're not going to cast any spells, and activate to make you both draw a card, and your opponent will then be drawing their second card, so you'll draw another card. card. This guy can make you draw 2 cards every single turn, although it is drawing your opponent 1 as well. I think this is a very powerful addition to all those Flash, Fairy and Rogue decks that float around formats like Historic and perhaps have a space in Pioneer at some point. I think it's very, very powerful. I don't know if it's Dark Confidant powerful at its heyday, but we will see. And we've got 3 more duos. 3 more duos. These are from the Commander product and the pre-release, I believe, although Skyfall's got them down as Commander at the moment, but there's pre-release at the bottom of the card, so maybe somewhere someone said they're from both. Who knows? Goro and Satoru is the Kamigawa combination. Catilda and Leah is another Innistrad combination. So I find this interesting because we've already got Thalia and the Gitrog monster, and now I've got Catilda and Leah as another version of that in the Commander or pre-release products, which means that we may get 2 duos from each plane with the promos as well. I actually didn't remember who Leah was. I think it's like the legendary Snapcaster Mage effect, and it gives your spells the Snapcaster effect when you play it. It turns every human you play into a Snapcaster, because Catilda was the human tribal lord from the last Innistrad block we had. Goro and Satoru, when you hit people with hasty stuff, you make 5/5s, cool. And then Slimefoot and Squee. Let's talk about Slimefoot and Squee. Jund, 3/3 Fungus Goblin, which is just fucking out. Oh, what a beautiful set of words to put together. When Slimefoot and Squee enters the battlefield or attacks, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. And then for 4 mana, which is Jund and 1, you sacrifice a sapling, return Slimefoot and Squee, and after 1 other target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate only as a sorcery. So it's a sorcery speed reanimator enabler, but to be able to get there, you have to sack off Slimefoot and Squee into the bin first. And bear in mind, it's a fungus, so you can't sack it to itself, for example. I think this is a wonderful design. It's got the sapling abilities of Slimefoot, another absolute favourite of mine from the more recent legendaries added to the game. And Squee's got that eternal, cannot die, always comes back thing. I do think it's interesting that does this mean that Squee can bring Slimefoot back from the dead? Are we about to see Squee's powers be able to be extended, and his life force and unkillableness, his eternal warrior status can be spread to other people? Will that be relevant in the plot? Who knows? But either way, this card is fucking sick and I want to build it. Next up, we got a sneak peek at some of the legendaries that they're putting into booster packs coming up. So instead of the historic artifacts that we saw in Brothers War and the the mystical archives in Strixhaven, we now have just legends. We're going to go with legends again, I think. I think we already had legends in another set. Either way, the 2 we have seen so far, 2 very exciting cards. OG Atraxa Praetor's Voice in the style of Nuka Penna. Probably not because she's from there, but because she is there in the story. Teach these people the price of their insolence, says Alish Non. And Ragavan the Nimble Pilferer from Kaladesh in the Kaladesh Invention frame. So 2 weird things about both of these. First of all, we've already had an Atraxa in the Nuka Penna frame in Nuka Penna. But it's a secret lair. So to see her in the same frame again with different art, but I guess different art style, is strange to me. Weird choice, if I'm honest. But even weirder, we got Ragavan in the Masterpiece frame, which marks the first time we've had a non-artifact in the Masterpiece frame. For those who don't know, the Masterpiece frame was meant to be for iconic and powerful artifacts from throughout Magic's history when we had masterpieces like lottery cards, when we had Kaladesh drop. Now we have Ragavan in that frame. Honestly, I think the card looks gorgeous. This is Magali Villeneuve just fucking wrecking everything. She's so good. She's one of the best artists in the game right now, if not the best when it comes to character portraits. I've said that before and I'll say it again. And it's a beautiful rendition of Ragavan, and the frame works for it. I get that this frame has originally and up until now only been for artifacts, but I think you can... Oh, who gives a shit? It makes treasures. What more do you want? There has been some rumblings as well. People are upset that they've recently bought into Ragavan and it's been reprinted. But honestly, when Ragavan is what? What is Ragavan right now? Ragavan is still $75 on average, or 70 euros if you live in the old world. Ragavan being so expensive is gross and disgusting, and I really want to see it come down, so a reprint is good. Although if this is just in a special slot, and it might be more rare than other cards in that special slot, being a mythic on that sheet, it may not even bring the price down much anyway, so that complaint is kind of null and void. The other thing about the Multiverse Legends, as they're being called, is that similar to the Mystical Archives, these will be historic legal. We've already had a member of the Arena team say they will be. However, they've also said they may look at preemptive bannings. So it's not quite clear if Ragavan will be legal in Historic or Historic Brawl. He may well be, but he will be coming to Gladiator on Arena. Just keep that in mind as well. He's not even that broken there, but I don't really want to see him in Historic because the card tends to show up far too fucking much in the format that it's legal in. And then a few more bits. We've got Aftermath, which is going to be a story focus showing the aftermath of the invasion on certain planes. I don't know if it's going to be once the Phyrexians have been killed or not. That's not clear yet. The only card we have been seeing is the Kenless Royal Funeral, which is a 4-mana legendary enchantment that says, when it enters the battlefield, exile 2 target legendary creature cards from your graveyard. You draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the greatest mana value among cards exiled this way. And legendary spells you cost 1 less for each card exiled with Kenless Royal Funeral. So it's a legendary enabler that reduces the cost of your cards by 1 or 2 depending on how many you exile, and it draws you loads of cards and gain, but you lose life. It's a powerful effect on a 4-mana enchantment. This is going to be a strong commander card in any legendary Matters deck that can play it, but it's also interesting that Kenrith is now dead. We now know that one of the best 5 color commanders in Magic is probably never going to have his own edition, unless we see a version of him fighting finally in the next set in March of the Machines. But it will be very strange if we see him now after we've already had his death previewed. I guess maybe it's kind of a tragic arc in that sense. Aftermath is a booster product, and the packs are going to be 5 cards each, which sounds kind of gross. I kind of hate it, but I guess if there's no commons in the set, what does it actually matter? Who wants their commons if they're just chaff anyway? Weird place to be. Feels a bit stingy. I wonder what the price of these boosters would be. Only time will tell. And then lastly, just wanted to mention the Showcase March of the Machines Volume 1. A Secret Lair, it being Volume 1 means there's going to be multiples of these. We see Wheel and Deal, Questing Beast, Olivia Voldaren, Walking Ballista, and World Tree. All cards perhaps outside of Wheel and Deal perhaps, but all cards that are like powerhouse representations of their original sets and in multiple formats, and in Commander, and all of them were in their old showcase frames. So Questing Beast being in the old Adventure showcase frame that we didn't get the first time around, but with new art. Actually, no, we think we did get one, but not with new art. But with new art, Olivia Voldaren being in the quite frankly horrible frame from that block, and so on. The exciting one here, I guess, really, World Tree's pretty good, but Walking Ballista in the Masterpiece frame, there it is. Really, really like it. The art is okay. It doesn't look like it's walking to me because the way the art is cropped has took out the 4 quadrupedal legs that it appears to be on. But the framing, it's one of the best frames I've ever made, right? It's gorgeous. And that is the complete download of what's going on and what we've been seeing. I did miss out the fact that Commando's coming with Plane Chase cards. I'll stick one of those on screen right now, but I'm not going to go into detail about them. Might talk about them in a later video, perhaps. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, like it, and let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If there's anything you're excited about, anything you're disappointed in, I would love to read the comments. And don't forget, Whatnot on the 23rd. So link down below, get your £10 credit, and I'll see you all over there on that live stream. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.